Okay, I regret to inform that this recording is going to be very short because I just spent time going through the entire agenda and realized that I was an idiot and didn't keep my mic recording, or didn't have my mic recording. So this is going to be the really abridged version now, as I am short on time. So thanks once again for taking an interest in your local politics and governance. We're going to go over the agenda for the BSD Board of Trustees agenda for tonight. So we're going to highlight this as I go and try and remember everything I want to touch on. There's a special board meeting. I'm going to touch on that in a bit. We have the normal report of senior administration with a few things that may have interest for if you're a particular type of person, but we'll leave that for later. We have a few committee reports, which are relatively normal at this stage, but they do have some interesting items of note. There's a delegation and petition here from the Brain and Parent Council Collective presenting on the topic of lunch supervision. I will mention that there was this letter to the editor on the same subject published in, technically, I think it was a Saturday edition of The Sun. So if that is something you want to read, uh, I'll leave you to it, but I will try and respect the copyright of The Sun and not show that on video. There's a couple motions here, which are probably better left to the committee minutes, so I'll touch on both of those later down. And the other thing worth mentioning is we are definitely coming to the end of budget season, so there's presentations and deliberations on this coming Wednesday in the morning. Then on Monday, March 2nd, there's the public budget consultation in the evening at 7:30. Then finally, the final budget approval on Monday, March 9th. So budget's coming up very soon. We're going to skip past the minutes of the regular meeting, but I do want to touch on this. There was a special meeting held between the Board of Trustees, and it was a very short meeting. So I suspect that this was simply a statutory requirement where the board had to collectively get together and kind of agree that John Zilke is going to become the new superintendent CEO in due course. Um, the timing of this meeting would line up with some of the news announcements around that theme. So while we can't know for certain, and I am certainly making assumptions here, and I am not an authoritative source, I'm willing to bet good money that's probably what happened there. We get to the report of the senior administration. The most interesting items here will be the suspension report, which has some statistics within it. Then we have a bunch of procedures and forms relating to accessibility standards, which are just amendments to existing procedures and forms to align with the Accessibility for Manitobans Act. So this is when I said if you're a particular type of person, this may have some interest to you. And I know accessibility is for everyone, but all that said, these sorts of things will interest particular people more than it would someone like me. That's just the reality of it. And that's why we have legislation to create a better society for everyone. So, all that said, if these sorts of things are of interest to you, then you may want to go through all this in more detail or watch tonight's meeting where presumably some more information and details on these procedures and forms will be shared. Again, I have to give the abridged version here, so I apologize for not being able to go into any further detail. Then all the appendixes within the report of senior admin are the K-12 suspension report for the semester one of a few different school years. So I think this covers 3 school years in total. But again, I did not go through this. The numbers don't look too concerning to me on just first glance. If you're talking about a student population in the high thousands or the low 10,000, it's not, 300 suspensions over 3 years for 10,000 students doesn't, to me, strike that there's a massive concern that we need to flip our lids about. But hey, that's my opinion. It's not factual in any way, shape, or form. Then all the remaining appendixes are just the accessibility standards. So once again, if you want to go through a ton more detail, all of those are in the sunshine for you to review. And then jumping down to the committee minutes, there's a few things here. So one of the motions is for this healthcare aid program, which looks to mostly just be an extension of an agreement between Assiniboine College and the BSD from 25-26 school year into 26-2027. So presumably nothing too controversial about that. And you can see that is actually the motion that appears in the agenda. I don't think there's much else I wanted to go over there. Finance and facilities. Once again, we're approaching budget, so there's a ton to go over here. There's a RFP for computer laptops for about $626,000 for 900 units. I'm only going to comment here. Again, take this with a grain of salt. There's a note here that the tender was posted to the BSD website and Merck's. I did find this tender on Merck's, but I try and keep an eye on the BSD website, and I never saw this RFP come in as a news item on the BSD website. And I did a web search and I didn't come up with anything for 2026 on the website either. I did find something for 25, but not 26. So all I'm saying is I didn't see it on the BSD website. I'm not saying that it wasn't posted, only that I didn't see it. Then there's some items on the 2026-27 budget. So there's some budget requests both from senior admin and the board that was raised in this meeting. So there's quite a number of line items here. The biggest ones are under the trustee and board. This is where the really big financial numbers come in. So it's mentioned here correctly that budget requests are not built into the preliminary budget and they'll have to be deliberated by the board. So that's all pretty normal as far as I'm aware, but I've also never observed the details and flow of the BSD's budget process. So there's a lot of detail I'm simply not aware of. There's a promissory note. I am not an expert enough with financing to understand the difference between a promissory note versus regular debt. So I will leave those details and any interest in follow-up to the viewer. Don't think there's anything else in the finance and facilities that piqued my interest too much, but this line item may be of interest, as may this line item, or this item if you're interested in, well, either of those two things I've just highlighted. Finally, if I'm not mistaken, we have personnel and policy, which, again, this one I suspect is the superintendent change, but given this was on February 9th, that may not necessarily be the case. And then, of course, the accessibility standards. So there is some further detail on those prior items. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of the agenda. So once again, that was the very abridged version. Hope I gave enough information without going too fast or overwhelming or not giving enough detail. Once again, the purpose of these videos is to get people a little bit more interested, not to provide full information on everything, because I'm simply not in a position to be able to do that. So with that, I won't be at the meeting tonight, but all the same, hope to see you on the recording when I watch it later.